Mistress of All Evil, A Tale of the Dark Fairy by Serena Valentino. Copyright 2009, Disney Enterprises Incorporated, published by Disney Press. Chapter 12, The Many Lifetimes of Nanny. As Cersei and Nanny walked back to Morningstar Castle together, Nanny's mind was still occupied by memories of Maleficent. Nanny wondered if Maleficent knew she was at Morningstar. Nanny knew Maleficent could feel the vibrations of power moving in the world. She could sense where to find a witch. But she could not discern exactly who the witch was. Still, Nanny had to wonder why Maleficent was coming to Morningstar at all. Was she coming to see the odd sisters, or was she coming to confront her? "She'll arrive soon," Nanny told Cersei as they reached the castle. They each gave a little nod to Hudson, Morningstar Castle's head butler, as they made their way through the vestibule and into the morning room. "Why do you think she's making the trip here?" "I think Maleficent has come because of what happened to Ursula," Cersei said. "Maleficent had no love for Ursula," Nanny reminded her. "True, but she had to have felt the great surge of power in the realms. She probably wants to know what caused it," Cersei pointed out. Nanny thought about it. "She did warn your sisters not to trust Ursula. She's probably here to lord it over them." Whatever Maleficent's reason, Nanny felt safe having Cersei on her side. "Of course I'm on your side. I love you," Cersei said, reading Nanny's thoughts. Nanny looked at Cersei with a sad smile. "Let's hope that never changes. I've had young girls tell me that, and they later regretted it." Cersei didn't think that was true. She was sure Nanny felt that way only because the daughter she loved most no longer loved her, and the loss of Maleficent, the loss of her daughter's love, made Nanny feel like she was a disappointment to all those around her. "I've never regretted loving you," Princess Tulip said, bounding into the morning room and giving Nanny a kiss on the cheek. Nanny suddenly felt very happy having the two young ladies with her. It reminded her of a time when her adopted daughter had loved her just as much as Cersei and Tulip did now. Nanny's stomach lurched at the thought of seeing Maleficent and having their inevitable confrontation. So many years had passed since they had seen each other, and their last encounter had been devastating. "Tulip, my dear, can I get you to do some research for me?" Nanny asked, distracting herself from her thoughts. "Could you please go to the library and look up any creatures in Morningstar that are plant or earth-based, other than the tree lords and cyclofen giants, of course, since you already read everything there is to know about them?" Tulip looked at Nanny suspiciously. "Are you trying to get rid of me?" Nanny shook her head. "No, my dear. It's very important. I know the subject interests you, and I happen to be in great need of the information." Cersei could see confusion on Tulip's face. "I'll go with you to the library and explain." "She's no longer a child, Nanny. She deserves to know what's happening," Cersei said, as Nanny shot her a concerned look. As Cersei and Tulip headed out of the room, Cersei turned. "I'll be right back. Don't worry. I'm not leaving you alone for long." Nanny's head was spinning, and her heart racing. Reliving one's many lifetimes, for truly that was what Nanny had lived, was like a gift that brought only heartache. It was easy to look back on past mistakes and wish better choices had been made, but to remember all past transgressions at once, to have them tumble down in great succession, was like nothing Nanny had ever experienced. Failing her adopted daughter was the gravest mistake of her lifetimes, and now Tulip was caught up in the mess, with her mother and father stuck in the kingdom enchanted by a sleeping curse. Everything was in ruins. Nanny seemed to be surrounded by nothing but grief and impending disaster. She didn't know where to begin. But she did. She'd already begun. Tulip was researching the local creatures, old and new. Nanny needed to know if there were any creatures in Morningstar that would pose a threat to Maleficent, and she would have Cersei look for a spell that would wake her sisters. The witch's house was still resting on the cliffs by the sea. Surely there was some spell hidden away in their many volumes that could help them. Cersei came back into the room. "I've explained everything to Tulip. She understands and isn't afraid. She's changed so much since I first met her. She's changed a great deal since yesterday. It's wonderful to see her becoming such a remarkable young woman. I'm sure you're proud of her." Nanny smiled. "I have always been proud of her. I've always seen her as the woman she would become. I never doubted Tulip would someday become the extraordinary young woman I knew she was." "Did you see who Maleficent would become?" Cersei asked. Nanny nodded. "I did, but I tried to change her future. I tried to steer her in another direction. And in my attempt to save her, I gave her all the tools she needed to become the Mistress of All Evil." That was Nanny's greatest failure. Although Maleficent likely saw it as Nanny's greatest gift to her, it felt like a knife in her heart to say those words aloud to Cersei. Mistress of All Evil. Nanny knew Cersei had been listening to her thoughts as she'd recalled her past with Maleficent. She'd made no effort to keep her thoughts secret. Allowing Cersei to listen to it was far easier and less painful than repeating her mistakes aloud. Nanny knew Cersei didn't judge her. Cersei was like Nanny. She could see time in ways others could not. She knew that Nanny had never tried to hurt Maleficent, that Nanny had done all she could to save her little green fairy. Cersei was able to rewind and play the recordings of time. Nanny felt Cersei likely knew more than she had shared. She probably knew everything, and one day, Nanny thought, Cersei might be able to experience all time as one time without going mad. Nanny knew that for now, Cersei could visit places and time individually, especially when they were emotionally charged, but it came at a cost. It was exhausting, and Cersei needed all her strength to help her sisters. Besides, it was too soon to point Cersei on the journey her life would take after she'd settled the matter of her sisters. It was too soon for Nanny to tell Cersei of her great destiny. So Nanny was careful to keep these thoughts from Cersei until the time was right. "I will not let you meet Maleficent alone. I just have to do a quick protection spell on the solarium, and I will be right back at your side," Cersei said. She gave Nanny a wary look before she kissed her soft, powdery cheek. Cersei could feel her heart being pulled in two different directions between Nanny and her sisters. She knew Nanny could sense it too. Her sister's home still sat on the cliffs above Morningstar. She was certain the answer to waking her sisters lay inside. But her sister's spell books would have to wait. Her childhood home would still be there when she was ready. Cersei couldn't bring herself to leave the castle quite yet. Not while Maleficent's threatening forest of tangling vines drew nearer. Thank you so much for listening. Remember, like and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell to keep up to date on all the new magic. Have a magical day.